Radiant team ban.
What's cracking, ladies and gentlemen? FortyeniN coming at you with another community shoutcast for the UGC Dota League Season 2. We're loading into game number 2 of the best of 2 series with the Eastern Invite between Team Joey and Tuzki or Husky. My apologies, I did refer to it as the Western Invite in the first game. I have realised it's the Eastern Invite since it's for the Southeast Asia / Australia and New Zealand region. So Team Joey were able to take a very decisive game number 1 off of the 5th pick Silencer, which really messed up Tuzki or Husky's draft. Since Tuzki or Husky, with a momentum-based lineup revolving around the Razor, Jakiro, as well as the Drow Ranger, unfortunately they weren't able to breach high ground at the time they wanted to, so they lost a huge amount of their momentum, and because Joey had to spare a late-game lineup, all Joey had to do is to continue to hold onto their ranks as long as possible, find their farm, and once they were able to find their core items, were able to start dominating Tuzki. So Terrorblade as well as a Pandarian Brewmaster band coming up from Joey as Tuzki this time. They're the ones with the first pick and led by their drafter Pork, who's opted to ban out the Viper as well as the Skywrath Mage. And so Pandarian Brewmaster played by Narcotic over on Team Joey was able to decisively win them or carry them through the early stages of the game just because they didn't. Tuzki or Husky chose to take fights without BKB on their Drow Rangers. They really weren't able to escape unscathed from the Pandarian Brewmaster. We've now got a Death Prophet, as well as the Faceless Void being picked up by both teams. And so both of these heroes were banned out in game number 1. Joey now opting to pick up the Ogre Magi. And so Death Prophet, the reason why we haven't been seeing as much of her as we used to is the fact that Exorcism, the cooldown's been increased by I believe about 30 seconds in A2, B as well as C. And so Death Prophet, because she's so heavily dependent on Exorcism to be able to win fights and to be able to take towers, it increases the window the enemy team has to capitalize every single time as she uses an Exorcism in an inopportune moment. And with Death Prophet, without the Exorcism, does lose the majority of her team fighting capability. Faces Void as well. The reason why we haven't been seeing as much of him as we used to in 8-1 is the fact that Chronosphere, the cooldown's been increased by 10 seconds at all levels, which doesn't seem like a significant change, but the fact that level 1 Chronosphere has been increased by such a huge amount, since Faceless Void is so heavily dependent on being able to find kills within his Chronosphere, and once he hits level 6 to recover for his lack of early game farm, Warrior has become a much riskier pickup, especially since Chronosphere no longer disables passives, and so we've been seeing heroes like the Bristleback, as well as the Brewmaster and the Phantom Assassin, used as counter picks to the Void, since they've got their passive evasion or their passive EHP ability to keep himself alive inside that Chronosphere. And so Tidehunter now being picked up by Tuzki or Husky, so it looks like it is going to be a 1-position Void picked up by them, whereas Tidehunter is going to be the offlane position, performing that 3-position role. Death Prophet, she used to be very flexible in what lane you could throw her in. You could use her in tri-lane in the 1v1 offlane, or even in the mid lane. Nowadays, with the fact that Exorcism had its cooldown increased, you no longer can afford to run Death Prophet in any other position apart from the mid lane. The only exception to this is if you're choosing to dodge a particular matchup. So for instance, Death Prophet against a Templar Assassin, you might actually contemplate running Death Prophet in another lane to dodge the Templar Assassin and run a hero to counter the TA in her stead, just to ensure that the TA isn't able to snowball out of control. Joey actually opting to ban out the Witch Doctor. This time they're forced to do so because the Faceless Void's being picked up by Tuzki or Husky. The advantage of the Void is he forces the enemy drafter to ban out heroes such as the Witch Doctor as well as the Lich, just so that they don't have to deal with that Chronosphere combination. Since Skywrath Mage has been banned out, we could actually be seeing a Lich ban coming out from Joey if they want to be really safe. Otherwise, they could opt to ban out even heroes like the Shadow Shaman, who also synergize well with the Void. The Shadow Shaman has tapered off in his popularity due to how greedy he is as a support hero pickup, just because he's very slow, needs a fair amount of farm and experience to really be effective, and really was dependent on the Death Ball meta where you took fights and translated them to towers. Tuzki or Husky opting to ban out the Centaur Warrunner. Warrunner is a fantastic counterpick against the Void, because every time Void leaps into going for the Chronosphere, you can react a lot more quickly with the Stampede. It can buy yourself that second of distance that you could prevent a 4-man Chronosphere and only turn into a 2-man Chronosphere. And so the Stampede does a massive amount of work against the Void. Joey instead actually opted to ban out the Zeus. So Zeus actually wouldn't be too bad of a pickup in this case, just because they have such a massive amount of teamfight control. As Zeus provides you the damage, he also lanes very well against the Death Prophet in that mid 1v1 matchup. But most likely I'm assuming Joey have faced this matchup before the Death Prophet against the Zeus, or Tuzki or Husky have an exceptionally skilled Zeus player to warrant the ban. Zeus actually has been steadily buffed over the last few patches in A2C. I believe his static field was increased by 20%, so he actually is an incredibly powerful hero. Hasn't really been utilized too much. He's predominantly picked up as a counter to the Terrorblade. It's every single time a Terrorblade chooses to engage in a team fight when the Zeus is alive, Zeus should be able to kill him every single fight and prevent him from getting a good use of his Sunder, just because his W is going to take out about 60% of TB's life at max level, once you factor in the static field damage. So Joey, once again, opting to pick up Silencer. Silencer does give you that flexibility in this case, because you picked him up fairly early on. So you could run him either as a core position Silencer, in that carry position role, as a safe lane farmer, or you could actually choose to run him that 5 position role, or that 4 position role, sorry, as they ran in game number 1. Ogre Magi also does give you a slight amount of flexibility. You can run him in an aggressive dual lane or as a solo offlaner. A lot of North American teams, such as Sneaky Nyx Assassins, they actually like running Ogre as a 1 position hero, and the rationale behind it is if you're able to find something like a 14 to 15 minute Agnum Scepter, which you can when Ogre's going to be your 1 position, no other hero in the game can really survive that onslaught. Ogre Magi has such an obscene amount of magic damage, especially with the fact that multicast has been quite heavily buffed, that you could decisively end the game in the first 30 minutes. And Ogre Magi, of course, the biggest strength of him as a support hero, the reason why he's considered one of the most powerful support heroes in this meta, is the fact that he's relevant at all stages of the game, and he gives you a very powerful late game with that Bloodlust. So even if you disregard the multicast, the fact that you could use Ignite to delay creep pushes, and you could use Bloodlust on your carry heroes, makes Ogre Magi a very potent pickup. Tuzki or Husky going all in for the team fight. All 3 of their picks so far entirely revolving around team fight. So we've got the Void to set up with the Chronosphere, Titan for the initiation / counter initiation with the Ravage, and then you've got the Sand King, who in this case is going to be performing that greedy 4 position role, where he ideally wants to spend as much time in the jungle as possible to try to get something like an 8-9 minute Blink Dagger and set up the initiation for the rest of his teams. If Sand King is actually able to find a very early Blink Dagger, Tidehunter can actually opt to forego the Blink at the early stages and go for something like a Arcane Boots into the mech, because you've got 2 people to initiate for you. You've got the Void and the Sand King. And so if Tuzki want to take early fights, that could actually be the better pickup for them. The advantage of the Tidehunter against the Silencer is the fact that while Silencer can catch Tidehunter with a global silence, because Tidehunter has Kraken Shell, if he's got that maxed out, he could actually choose to run at the enemy team, force them to hit him, proc that Kraken Shell to guarantee they could get that Ravage off. That being said, Silencer's a fantastic counter pick to the Sand King, so very surprised Tuzki or Husky chose to pick up the Sand King, considering the fact there's a Silencer on the field. This is a mistake they made in game number 1, where they opted to pick up the Drow Ranger against the Silencer pickup, just because Silencer can completely stop any kind of aggression coming out from them, as well as picking, the Drow Ranger against the Bat Rider in that particular case, and Silencer was the 5th pick. Tuzki or Husky, they also have opted to ban up Jakiro, because you've already got enough pushing capability coming in from the Death Prophet. You don't want to add a Jakiro into the mix as well, especially a core position Jakiro with that early Yule Septus, and Death Prophet, also a hero that goes for the early Yules. Having 2 Yules on the enemy team in the first 20 minutes is going to be an absolutely critical swing for these early engagements, especially because they've got the durable support of the Ogre Magi, as well as the DPS support of the Silencer, for them to really be able to take these long drawn out engagements. Tuzki or Husky stand deliberate for their 4th pickup, as Joey have opted to go for the Clockwork Goblin. They instead actually go for the Luna, and so we could be seeing what looks like a Faceless Void in the mid lane or in the off lane, and Tidehunter in the mid lane. They're going to be have to switch things up now, and the huge drawback of this is Faceless Void. He's no longer efficient enough with his Chronosphere that you could afford to pick him just as an alt bot. Faceless Void, he needs farm, he needs levels to be effective now, especially since Tuzki or Husky, they don't have a hero that can synergize as well inside the Chronosphere. Luna as well synergizes only on the surface level at best, just because she's got a short enough range that she can't actually right-click target inside the Chronosphere. So she still can throw out the Eclipse, so that's not enough damage, especially if the game goes late. So Faceless Void in that offlane role, with the fact that his Chronosphere no longer disables passive effects. So it could actually be worthwhile for the Death Prophet to even consider picking up something like a Heaven's Halberd, or even just a Talisman of Evasion, to really mitigate a lot of Faceless Void damage. And Void, the biggest weakness of him in that 3 position role, is he's so heavily dependent on being able to find kills for it to be worthwhile. And Joey instead decided to go for the PA. So PA is a hero that hard counters Void, because the Chronosphere won't disable Blur. And Phantom Assassin, she has access to a 50% evasion, so if they happen to catch PA out inside the Void, they don't really have any other form of DPS. Sand King can choose to Epic and then blink into it, but considering there's a Silencer on the enemy team, you're either going to get an Epi or you're going to get a Chronosphere off. You can't afford to get both, because the enemy team is going to let you get both. So we've got a Shadow Demon band now coming out from Team Joey, as well as a Spectre band coming out from Tuzki or Husky. So a Respect band going over to Citrus the Great, especially since the Spectre synergizes very well in this particular lineup, because you've got the global presence coming in from the Silencer with the global silence, as well as the pseudo-global presence of the Clockwork, who's got a massive initiation range. So Spectre, once again, Citrus the Great can AFK farm, ult into these fights from Tuzki or Husky. 3 seconds left in the reserve time. Will be interesting to see what hero they pick up last. They do decide to go in for the Lich, so a much safer pickup. But it will be really interesting to see how they choose to lane this. Pork has chosen to pick up the Faceless Void. He was the mid player for the last game, so it could be what looks like a mid position Faceless Void. The biggest weakness of the mid position Void, much like the offlane Void, is he's very heavily dependent on being able to find kills early on with that Chronosphere for it to be worthwhile. Otherwise, he's going to get bullied up by Necrotic with the Crypt Swarm spam. He's not really going to be able to contest it for our farm too effectively. At level 1, he does have the superior base damage, so unless a Pork is able to play very aggressively then, try to secure as much CS as possible, Necrotic will gradually be able to get control of the lane, because Void got no way to push up the lane, and if he decides to go for runes, well, he's got superior rune ability just because he's got the time lead to position himself in before Necrotic could get the rune. Necrotic could just take his tower instead. And so it will be interesting to see how Tuzki or Husky decide to play this, because they've drafted themselves into a bit of a corner since the Faceless Void, the Tidehunter, and the Sand King hard countered by the Silencer. So we're going to introduce the players from both teams over on Tuzki or Husky. We're going to have Diego, going to be the offlane Tidehunter this time. He was the 4-position Jakiro in the last game. Tuzki going to be once again the 1-position Luna. Going to be going for what looks like a Ring of Aquila rush. La La La, who was the 3-position Clockwork. This time going to be the 4-position Sand King, so he's going to be spending a fair amount of time in the jungle. Opting to start with boots first. Lithium, going to be the 5-position Lich once again. Will be interesting to see if he decides to sit around. Yeah, he's going into the mid lane to be able to eat a creep as early as possible, just to ensure that a Pork is going to be that 2-position Faceless Void, gets as much help as possible. Diego immediately going in to place that sentry ward, that safety ward. But Megalomania actually scouts him, so he could actually choose to guess where that ward's going to be going down. So Diego instead holds on to a safety ward for now. Megalomania, once again, going to be the 4-position Silencer. Necrotic resuming his role as that 2-position Death Prophet in that mid lane, being pulled 2 tangos, going for a very stat-heavy build, because he knows that he has to have as much right-click damage as possible to be a contest Void for last hits. Citrus the Great, once again, going to be the 1-position Phantom Assassin, probably going to be going for a Ring of Aquila rush as well. Sidu, boots first, currently standing in the Roshan pit. Be a scout out the rune. He's going to be the 5-position Ogre Magi. And we're going to be seeing Lenti reliving his role once again as that 3-position Clockwork Goblin. They know Sidu's there, so they're not really choosing to commit for the ward, for the rune. They do ping him out. And we've got a very aggressive ward being placed. So since it blocks that camp, however, the drawback of this ward is it's very easily de-warded. You immediately know that it's going to be placed there. There's no other real spot that they could have placed that ward. Maybe they could have opted to put a hero there. But the nice thing about it is it does prevent them from doing the double pull through. So it looks like we could be seeing potential dual lanes coming out from Joey, or a lot of aggression coming out from Sidu anyway, with boot first and with that point in Ignite. He actually does a substantial amount of DPS. This is the biggest power of the Ogre Magi. But they catch him out with the Burrow Strike coming out from La La La. Tuzki skilled the Lunar Blessing instead, so it doesn't have any interrupt. And Sidu eats a lot of damage for his troubles, but Ogre Magi with the 2.5 base HP regen, not really too fast. He decides to rotate himself back to the mid lane. Or maybe he's going to continue to camp the rune, apply a lot of pressure. Diego eats the Curse of the Silence. He's got the Anchor Smash to be instantly purged off. Megalomania able to zone him out fairly effectively. Actually very surprised to see that he went to go for Curse of the Silence against a Tidehunter. Usually see Glaives of Wisdom picked up, since he's got a very cheap spell to be able to instantly purge off the mana burn. But that being said, Tidehunter without mana has no way to actually contest the lane against Citrus the Great, so that could be the rationale for going for that early point in Curse. Sidu once again burns La La La. Lenti catches him out as well with the Battery Assault, forces a Burrow Strike from La La La. So he's now going to be completely zoned out, and the biggest weakness of Sand King is he's an exceptionally greedy 4-position hero. He needs to find farm in the jungle for him to be relevant, because otherwise he's not going to be finding the farm or the experience to be able to get the early epicenter as well as the early blink. Sand King's entirely dependent on the blink dagger to be relevant in the game, unlike the Earthshaker, who still can provide a fair amount of work just because of how long the fissure range is. Megalomania testing for CS with Diego. Once again, throws out the Curse of the Silence. Really good recognition coming out from Megalomania, waiting until he throws out the Anchor Smash before cursing him. And Citrus the Great instantly playing very aggressively, but with that Anchor Smash, she can't actually do any damage. She's tickling Diego at this point. Very early Ring of Basilius, just to ensure that he's got the money he needs to be to spam out the Stifling Dagger. Pork, not going to be finding any runes this game since we've got Sidhu constantly zoning him out there. La La La. La 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 only 1.5, nowhere near at level 3 he needs to be efficiently jungling. He doesn't even have the option of jungling at this point. Although that being said, Sidhu as well, now completely out of mana region, and only at level 1. So the Ogre Magi roaming support. While they're trading support for support, this is a lot more effective for Joey than it is for Tuzki. Since Ogre Magi, he can find recovery later on. He doesn't necessarily need farm or even experience to still be relevant compared to the Sand King. So it's much like running a 4-position, or rather a 5-position bounty hunter against a hero like an Enigma, just to disrupt him inside the jungle. La 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 should be able to find his level 2 off this creep pool, but that being said, Sidhu's had a leech experience. So Sidhu says thanks for the experience, I'm going to run back in and start smacking you. La La La, he actually can't afford to eat another Ignite, especially with a few right clicks coming in. Diego looks like he's actually able to find a fair amount of farm, but that being said, compared to Lentif, not doing too crash shot. The biggest strength of the Clockwork Goblin, the reason why he used to be one of the only potential offlane heroes, is the fact that you can still find CS from a distance with that Rocket Flare. But Tuzki, as well as Lithium, doing their best to deprive experience. This is the power of the Lich. He gives you that macro advantage of being able to constantly sap out creeps with that sacrifice. La 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 finally picked up level 2. He could opt to go into the jungle now, since the biggest weakness of their tri lanes, they really can't find any kills on Lentif, just because he's got the cogs as well as the survivability from the battery assault to prevent La 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 from really getting up close to him without eating a fair amount of damage in return. Especially if Sidhu is waiting in the wings, and Sidhu actually camp blocks the easy camp. He now scouts out the invisibility rune, so he might actually look to pick that up and actually go for a kill attempt in the mid lane. Pork actually did finally find himself a rune, forced to go for 2 points and backtrack early on. And this is the biggest weakness of the mid lane Void. You want to max out either the Time Walk to give yourself a very easy crossing fair. While I say that, Lentif actually takes first blood, as Tuzki's able to bring him down. Looks like it was set up by La 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 with the Burrow Strike, followed up by Lithium with the Frost Blast, and then Tuzki with what looked like a Lunar Beam, so good play coming out from them. The biggest weakness, as I was saying about Pork in that mid lane, because Void wants to ideally max out Time Lock, because that's where you get all your killing power from, especially as a mid lane Void who is so heavily dependent on his ultimate. When you're laning against a very aggressive mid lane hero like Necrotic, you're forced to go for these early points and backtrack, and you don't really need that. You might actually be able to find a kill. Good Chronosphere coming out from Pork, just barely catches Necrotic. And that means Diego can also throw in a few more right clicks, and with that, they're able to find themselves a kill. Tuzki or Husky, making it work, anything can work, says Big Daddy No Tail, and Pork really showing it off. Excellent Chronosphere coming out from him. If it was even an inch slightly further, Diego wouldn't be able to throw out those right clicks, and Necrotic would have survived. The weakness of this is because you're forced to go for these 2 points of backtrack, it's hindering your early gank effectiveness, so you're not going to be having the early points in the time lock that gives you the majority of your DPS in the early stages, or you're not going to be having the second point in the time walk, which gives you enough range that at night time you can initiate without them seeing you. So it looks like we're having a bit of lag issues over for the boys in Tuzki and Husky. Cheeky bit of banner coming out from them. Megalomania opting not to go for any points in Glaive, so he's going for a very conventional silencer build, where you max out the Curse of the Silent and then the Last of Word secondly. Citrus the Great, Phase Boots up on them, so playing very aggressively as the PA. We have been seeing a resurgence in treads for the PA to be a lot more effective, just because you've got the 50% evasion coming in from Blow, and you don't want to be maxing out the Blink Strike. That being said, Citrus the Great seems to have a preference for Phase Boots because it gives you a lot more aggressive capability, as well as a lot more right-click damage in lane, which you really do need against the Tidehunter and as the PA especially. Since your level 1 coup de grace isn't really too effective for the crits, when you get to level 2 coup de grace that your DPS really starts to skyrocket. Pork, trying to camp the room, and Megalomania's already there. Well, walks on top, gets a first hit bash. Megalomania throws at the Curse of Silence, so Pork not going to have enough mana to go for the Chronosphere if it was off cooldown. Diego, no Ravage available, runs in, tries to zone him out with the Anchor Smash. Looks like he completely whiffed. Does buy him some space though. And Faces Void was able to pick up that bounty rune, now forced out of lane. And Necrotic, this is where the Death Prophet excels. She's now going to start pressuring your tower, going for the very conventional build where you go for 3 points in the Exorcism early on. You actually choose to prioritize Exorcism once you get level 3 Crypt Swarm, just because in terms of scaling, it's a lot more efficient for the pickup, because the 4th point only gives you 75 damage. Whereas the 4th point in the Exorcism and Witchcraft boosts your movement speed as well as increasing the mana efficiency for Death Prophet, especially in the mid lane. So you're able to get off another Crypt Swarm before you're completely out of mana. That being said, if you do choose to go for the much more aggressive build, that's if you find yourself playing a lot more actively, so rotating to other lanes. But Death Prophet usually just sits in the mid lane. Necrotic actually a bit of a misplay coming up from him. Wasn't able to find too much CS, and Pork actually quite handily out CSing Necrotic in that mid lane. So the Faceless Void pickup starting to do a bit of work. It's the fact that you've got vastly superior level 1 base damage. And since Necrotic just sat in the mid lane and Pork was able to find a few runes, starting to work out for them. So Tuzki and Husky, now actually starting to clear out some jungle camps. This is the power of the 4-position Sand King. If you're allowed to go greedy, and you have the time and space to be able to pull it off, really can work out quite heavily in your favor. Tuzki, going for a fairly standard Luna build. Will be interesting to see what item she chooses to go for first. Most likely going to be the Ring of Aquila, maybe something like a BKB rush to try to take fights early on. It's the biggest strength of the Luna. She has a massive amount of presence. The enemy team is always forced to focus by her, lest they eat the majority of that Eclipse. And when you've got two very powerful cores, Pork actually catches out two. Diego in the backline. If he had a Ravage available, could have actually turned that into 2 kills. Pork got to be very careful though. Curse of the Silence as well as the Ignite being used. Might be to keep himself alive, but now unfortunately only catches 1. That buys enough space so that both teams are able to retreat. Lithium and Citrus to Great. Also there, Citrus to Great. Coup de Grace has a creep in front of Lithium, says get back, that's what I could do to a creep. What do you think I could do to you? Then immediately resume his farming. Citrus to Great, not really too sure why he chose to come in. Probably should have spent more time farming the top lane. Especially since it would have been a very risky pickup. It looks like the entirety of both teams. Apart from Lenteeth, and now hookshots over on Tuzki, unfortunately hits a creep. And Tuzki is able to create enough distance that he can't choose to commit. Throws out a cheeky Lucent Beam. So Lenteeth eats a beam for his trouble. Going for the standard Clockwork build where you max out the Battery Assault. Will be interesting to see if he opts to go for the Arcane Boots or if he chooses to go for something like Phase Boots to play a lot more aggressively. Phase Boots being picked up, so it does mean that you're no longer as dependent on your hookshot to be able to set up your Cog/Battery Assault. Pork going for a fairly conventional split build. He actually eats a fair amount of damage from that Stifling Dagger crit with that Coup de Grace. So Citrus to Great, level 8. Once he picks up level 11, that's when things start to become very fun for the PA, because you've got so much burst damage potentially available with that Coup de Grace crit, and they're giving a lot of space to Sidhu, because they realize they need that multicast available for him to be effective. And Sidhu actually going for a bit of an interesting build because he realizes he's so EXP starved. Ideally, you want to go for the second point and Ignite at level 2 before you choose to go for more points of Fire Blast. However, if you're EXP starved, as Sidhu was in this case, going in for the second point and Fire Blast means that you're going to forgo Ignite and instead go for early points in the Bloodlust. Looks like he has done so. He's also opted to pick up a Quelling Blade. Bit unusual considering he's got so much base damage as the Yoga Magi already, but in this case, most likely going to be to make up for the fact he's always going to be losing damage to the Titanless, so they can afford to leave him alone against him. Hasn't really been paying out too much so far. Citrus the Great still holding on to his goal. Will be interesting to see what item he chooses to go for. The drawback of the PA is she's not really too great of a Midas carrier compared to other heroes like the Void. You still do get the DPS increase from you increase attack speed, as well as the EXP, which is nice. But overall, as the PA, unless you either choose to go all in for the late game or you choose to go in for the mid game. So she's going for the Drums of Endurance, phased into Drum. The biggest power of PA is she has a lot more burst damage available a lot earlier than most carries, because when you get that level 2 Coup de Grace, you can potentially 2-3 shot enemy heroes, especially the supports. Diego keeping himself out, unfortunately not enough mana available for Sidhu, so good recognition coming up from him. Realizing that Sidhu didn't have that follow-up Fire Blast, and so he could just waddle his way on out of there. Lenteeth hasn't really been doing too great in the offlane. Diego, that being said, has been doing a lot worse. So he still doesn't have his Ravage available. Interesting to see he actually hasn't even attempted to stack Ancients. But that being said, there is a very aggressive early ward placed there by the Dire Star to prevent this from happening. Soul Ring now available for Sidhu, so he's got everything he needs for the next 5-10 minutes. He might want to pick up a Yule Scepter later on, just so he gets a lot more mana to work with. But the Soul Ring effectively solves all your early mana issues, just because it's a free Fire Blast, as well as a free Ignite. Pork going for a fairly standard Mask of Madness build. Blink Dagger is now available 11 minutes into the game. And Tuzki or Husky, they've got a significant advantage Because Joey, they are not prepared for this. There's no global silence available. Nicotic finally finds a tower, and he's only just picked up at a point in the exorcism. Also doesn't have enough mana to really work with Nicotic as well. Looks like he's going for a phase drum Death Prophet build, as opposed to going all in for the Yule Scepter. Megalomania does take a death, as it looks like the hookshot's being used over in Pork. Pork, no Chronosphere available. Tuzki, no Eclipse available. Looks like they expended both Chrono and the Eclipse. Gonna find that kill. Fire Blast being used by Sidhu. Looks like he's trying to find a kill over on La La La, but he pops the epicenter. Should be able to bring down Sidhu. Tuzki as well cleans up Lenteef, and Tuzki or Husky playing a lot more effectively this game. In terms of their early game aggression, they realized that they can't afford to let Joey find that farm, they can't afford to let them find their levels. So when Joey played greedy, because their greed wasn't punished, they have to take these engagements where they can. Pork, Morbid Mask finish as well as the Mask of Madness. Citrus, the great jumps in on Tuzki. Tuzki interrupts him with the Lucent Beam. Not going to be enough damage for me to bring him down, because he was really relying on the secondary crit. And Pork backtracks the Stifling Dagger. He's now got the Mask of Madness available. And with that level 2 Chronosphere and the maxed out Time Lock, this is where Void starts to look very scary. Because if he's able to catch out every hero aside from the Phantom Assassin just because of Blur, Pork should be able to be guaranteed to be able to find a kill inside the duration of the Chronosphere with the Mask of Madness active. Drums of Endurance being picked up by the Lunas, a very old school build coming in from Tuzki. Trades drums into the BKB, just because it gives you a lot of cheap early to mid game stats. Lets you beef up a lot earlier. Sidhu goes on the Fire Blast. No multicast available on Pork, commits to a kill over on Sidhu. Just waddles away. Tower chooses to ignore him, goes in for creeps instead. Lithium could be the return kill, as Nicotic, he's got the Crypt Swarm available, throws it out. Never mind, the Ravage comes up, Diego catches up to, then the Bar Strike from La La La. They clean him up, and Nicotic as well. Now he's caught on the wrong side of the map, fleeing for his life. La 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 showing off that Blink Dagger once again. He's got Bar Strike in 1 more second. Should be a fairly easy kill. Nicotic caught in a bad place. Pork comes in, typical Void contribution to a gank. Time walks himself forward, smacks him once, gets the kill, says thanks for the gold. Now should be transitioning more into a carry build to the mid lane Faceless Void, doing a huge amount of work because Nicotic decided to go for that Death Prophet and chose to not dodge. So the Void pickup was talking about how questionable it was to send a Void into the mid lane, of course the caveat being the fact that Void's got superior level 1 base damage. And Pork, really playing it to perfection, he realizes that the only way he could beat the DP in lane is if he just out CS's her. If he's able to keep her down, if the rest of his team's able to play very aggressively, similar to how Team Secret run the Sven in that mid lane, because they know that if the Death Prophet plays aggressively or has herself out of position, Sven falls in with the Stormbolt, Mirana rotates in with the arrows, and Faceless Void, much like the Sven, makes your lane very gankable. Of course, the difference between the Void and the Sven is Void has to wait until level 6 before you really have reliable kill power, whereas Sven, from level 1 he's got that kill power just because of the Stormbolt, so he can set up his own gank. Tuzki will be interesting to see what item he chooses to go for. She could actually choose to go for Greed and pick up something like a Yasha or a Helm of the Dominator and start stacking and clearing out Ancients. If they really want to take it to the late game, because so far Tuzki or Husky have put themselves in the commanding lead of the game. And Joey this time, they're in a bit of a bad situation. Citrus the Great duking up against Tuzki, but Tuzki pops the Eclipse, unfortunately. Bad Eclipse timing, and Citrus the Great just runs through the other side. That's a 2-minute cooldown being expended for very little gain. But in the mid lane, looks like they actually were able to clean up Lenteef and Nicotic, but they did commit the Chronosphere, the Epi, and the Chain Frost, and the Wombo combo coming up from Tuzki or Husky. Chrono to set up the Blink, Epi with the Chain Frost, and even the Ravage, if it was available, could have been used. It's a good turnaround kill coming in from Tuzki or Husky. And Arcane Boots is now available for Sand King, so he's finished his core items. He's completely set for the rest of the game. Maybe he might look to pick up something like a BKB so he could disregard the Global Silence, or a Yule Scepter so he could use it to purge it off. Pork, holding on to his goal for now, ideally wants to go for something like a BKB so he as well can ignore the Global Silence. That's the weakness of the Silencer. Mass BKBs completely renders him inert. There's absolutely nothing he can do against that strat. Sidhu holds him with the Fire Blast over in Porks. No multicast available, so he wasn't able to translate that into a kill. This is the weakness of Ogre Magi in that 5 position role, is he's so heavily dependent on multicast now, more so than ever, because the base damage for Fire Blast was decreased by 30. He's really dependent on multicast damage to go for kills, especially since he's only got 1.89. So just the Great goes over on Diego. Diego does have the Ravage, but he's caught inside with the Last Word. And the Last Word damage is going to be enough. So Megalomania starts stealing some intelligence. His first intelligence is still the Courier. Might actually be taking a death. Not able to do so. Looks like Megalomania just barely tickles it. They are grouping up on the bottom lane. They do have Exorcism available. That being said, they don't actually have enough mana to use it, so Necrotic will only have enough mana for an Exorcism in that fight. That could potentially be huge for Tuzki or Husky, because they've got Ravage and they have the Chronosphere. If the tower can survive 5 seconds, which it will with the fortification, Tuzki or Husky can choose to contest this. If they realize that Necrotic's actually completely out of mana, they do so. Tuzki or Husky rotating in, Chronosphere actually catches out too. Global Silence comes in, but it's too late. Pork actually eats a 5 blast for his troubles, whilst the last one could be taking a death, as the Exorcism's Ghost is doing a lot of damage. Lenteef hookshots in, they do lose, they finally lose Pork. Lenteef as well actually gets duped down by Diego, so they're able to clean up 3 for 1. Cog's doing a huge amount of work there. Burrow Strike coming up cooldown 1 second, unfortunately whiffs it. Burrow strikes the ground for his trouble, Megalomania just barely limps on out there. But they're able to kill all 3 cores of Joy in exchange for 1 of their own. Very worthwhile trade for them, especially since not only do they defend their tower, they're able to take their own tower. So great play coming up from Tuzki or Husky. There was an aggressive ward placed there by the Dire side to spot out any TP rotations that they happen here. Instead they TP'd in behind the tower, inside the tree line, so that the enemy team had no idea what was happening. Great recognition coming up from Tuzki or Husky. This time, a lot more cautious. Of Team Joey, they know that what Joey teamfight revolves around, and so they realize the weakness of that 4-position silencer is if you're able to find BKBs early on, he really doesn't become too effective. And when you're able to get the Chronosphere off, Megalomania unfortunately wasn't able to global silence as Pork leaped in. So good recognition, so good reactions coming in from Pork, being able to throw out the Chronosphere before Megalomania could respond. Sidhu, time lock to all hell. Pork could choose to commit to this with the time lock coming off cooldown very shortly. Sidhu can actually turn around, pop that Soul Ring and throw a Fire Blast. He does so. He says, "You come at me, you missed with the rest of my team." Citrus finds that kill. So he's going for what looks like a Helm of the Dominator. So this is the weakness of the PA. If you go for this mid-game build, and you're not in the mid lane, or you're not able to find many kills with it, your late game actually, you jeopardize your late game, because Phantom Assassin does need a fair amount of gold to be relevant in the later stage of the game, because you need a BKB on hers, just so she doesn't die to the Epicenter as well as the Ravage combination. He doesn't really have any way to man-fight a hero like a Void, even though she's got the Blur. Void's got the Chronosphere, and he's going for straight up for an MKB. Once that MKB comes online, Citrus has to be very careful. Actually scouts him out, just walks away. Both players saying hi to each other. Sidhu, that Ogre Club pickup, ideally wants to be going for something like an Aghanim Scepter, so it could be the Ogre Club into the Aghanim Scepter instead of starting with the Point Booster. Otherwise he could potentially be going for a BKB, so it doesn't get completely ruined by the Ravage. It's in the same vein as the Silencer. Tidehunter as well, the way to counter him is just to pick up mass BKBs on your team. So they're so heavily dependent on their ultimates to be relevant in these fights. That pickup really does limit their effectiveness, but if we have a look at the net worth graph, Joey does heavily favor Tuzki or Husky. The only core on Team Joey that's really keeping up to par is going to be the Phantom Assassin. She opted to go for mid-game items. So Citrus the Great, not really going to be too relevant until the BKB comes online, because I've got the Chronosphere and the MKB coming online very shortly, as well as the Ravage Epicenter. They actually should be the killer just off magic damage without having to resort to actually hitting her. Especially if you keep in mind there's also the Eclipse. Tuzki hasn't been too much of a factor in these fights so far, because he's been spending a lot of time farming on his own. But he's picked up 3 kills with no deaths, so his farm is actually skyrocketing very well. As far as the late game is concerned, this time, Joey have the weaker offlaner, since the Clockwork Goblin tapers off very handily after the 35-minute mark, when BKB and 4-star start to come online. Because he suffers the same issues as Panda and Brewmaster. He can hookshot in, put himself at risk, and then the team shrugs it off and says, so now what? So he's instead going to go for what looks like a Blade Mail. So Blade Mail pickup. If he was able to find it a little bit earlier before the makings of a BKB started to come online for the enemy cores, would have been a great pickup, but in this case, because the only hero that can reliably use it on is going to be Pork. Tuzki though, Smoke Gank is going to break on top of him. He actually runs in through Sidhu, Fire Blast in the face, gets a 2x multicast, looks like it was multicast Bloodlust, and they just smack him down. They end her spree. Sidhu finds some much needed gold, especially if he's going to go in towards the Aghanim Scepter. And that Smoke Gang is able to translate itself into a kill. The experience change is going to be much more critical, especially since Joey are playing so far from behind. We have a look at the difference in EXP. 5,000 EXP, 21 minutes in. Not a massive amount by all means, but the fact that it used to be 7.5 is going to be a lot more important. So it means the enemy support's going to get their level 2 ultimates before yours are going to be getting theirs. And Ogre Magi really wants to be able to pick up that level 2 multicast ASAP. just to increase the likelihood of him being able to get up that critical multicast. His Fire Blast on its own without multicast is actually fairly inefficient. Lithium and Pork knocking down the tower. They've got the creep wave there to back them up, and Pork almost has his MKB. That MKB is going to be the item that really determines the title of the game. It lets them instantly kill Citrus the Great inside the Chronosphere. And since Joey is so heavily dependent on Citrus the Great to really be their form of late game, since Necrotic, much like the Brewmaster Death Prophet as well, tapers off unless they're able to find an obscene amount of farm. And Necrotic in this game just hasn't really been finding it. Looks like he only just finished his Yule Scepter. That's going to be the critical item pickup for the Death Prophet. It means that if they jump you, if you've got your Exorcism, you cyclone yourself into the air, but while I say that, Megalomania caught him out of position, la la la, Fire Strikes him, and Pork smacks him down. 500 gold off that MKB, should be finding in the next minute and a half, unless he gets another kill. Necrotic, gotta be very careful now. Tuzki, already sitting in the mid lane, he's got his BKB flying out towards him. Necrotic does find that Haste Rune. Citrus the Great going for his own BKB, not going to be finding it for a little while, so that Helm of Iron Will, just a dead pickup at this point. The multicast are real coming in from Sidhu. That was only with the level 1 multicast available. If it was level 2, would have gotten an extra proc of that Fire Blast. Of the Ignite, sorry, really does help delay enemy pushes, because with level 2 multicast you've got enough range that you can initiate it from here. So you're not at risk yourself. If they choose to blink initiate, you should be able to spot them. And retreat before that becomes a factor. Citrus the Great, with that tower kill and a little bit more gold, will be having his BKB, but he won't have it for the next fight if Tuzki or Husky decide to commit to high ground. But it looks like they have learned their lesson from the last game, choosing not to risk it on any early game gambles. They're deciding to back themselves off, secure the late game, because they know the late game already is there. This time they've got the superior late game lineup, so there's no real pressure on them to try to close the game as quickly as possible. Tuzki was his 10-second BKB available 23 minutes into the game. This could be an absolute nightmare for Joey to really deal with. The only one that could deal with Luna once she pops her BKB is gonna be Citrus the Great, and he doesn't really have all too much damage to speak of. He's entirely dependent on the coup de grace to carry him through these fights. He doesn't have the Cranium Basher for the lockdown. Usually when you go for phase in the drum, you want Cranium Basher as your next item, just so that way you can manfight, you've got enough stats, and you can translate the Basher into an Abyssal Blade later on. Necrotic, Cyclone's Pork. It looks like Pork did throw out the Chronosphere, so it's a whipped Chronosphere. And a 100-second window going in favor of Joey. But Pork, he's got his MKB now. He's not really too fast. He's going to be start farming towards his own BKB. Since the weakness of this build is while it does give you an answer for the PA, it doesn't give you an answer for the Silencer. If Megalomania gets a clutch, a global silence when Pork leaps in, Pork is completely screwed. He's got no real way to deal with him, with the enemy team, especially with the amplification from the Mask of Madness. And being caught behind enemy lines with the silence will force the rest of his team to commit or to leave him. And in this case, because Pork is such a critical member of their team, they can't really afford to just leave him out to dry like the same way they can if it was an offlane faces Void. Especially since he does have a fair amount of spree gold locked inside him. So he's going to be a cash pinata for the boys of Joey to be a smack open. Aegis will be reclaimed in about 2 minutes. Looks like the Aegis carrier is going to be Citrus the Great. So I haven't really been able to find any convincing fights in their favor with the Aegis, just using it for fun. And so the advantage of the Aegis in this case is it makes the enemy team much less reluctant to try to take these fights, because they know that they're going to be fighting into an Aegis Phantom Assassin. There's no point in risking it, because if Citrus the Great is able to find a turnaround kill, and PA excels in long drawn out fights, because she could run targets down with the Cycling Dagger and with the Blink Strike, it's very difficult to disengage cleanly against a PA. Things could fall apart from Tuzki or Husky, and they've learned their mistake from the last game where they tried to end the game too early, before they had their core items available, before they were really ready. And so Joey were able to pull out a fantastic defense. This time, Joey once again on the defense. And Tuzki or Husky stand the ground. Citrus the Great, with that BKB pop, actually is able to bring down Tuzki, so they are able to man-fight down the enemy core. Pork, corner with the last word and the global silence. Lanteef actually hookshots himself to safety, disjointing and dodging the Bar Strike. Great play coming out from him, but it does throw away a 50-second window. Pork gets a first hit time lock. Or it could have actually been the MKB proc. Not really too much of an issue since Pork just brings them down. Megalomania. Global Silence was expended for that. They do have to ravage the Epi, and they've got the Chronosphere. They can actually look to try to take a tower now. That being said, Aegis still is up for another minute, so they might play a little bit more safe until that wears off. Sidhu Picks up his Agnum Scepter, so this is the power of the Ogre Magi. He's always guaranteed to get a stun up. He gets an immediate 3x, so 5 fireballs over on Diego. Not going to be too happy with that. Sudo should really buy himself a lottery ticket at this rate. Decides to TP himself out, and Pork not able to find him. So great recognition coming in from Sudo instead of TPing there. Actually chose to hide himself in the tree line, so that way if Pork time walked over into the tree line, which is going to be his most logical move, he's going to have to physically move himself in, and that buys him enough time to do a TP up. So heads up play coming out from Sudo. And with that Agnum Scepter, the Ogre Magi becomes a lot more scary. Especially since Pork doesn't have a BKB, he has to catch Studu inside the Chronosphere. Otherwise, he could actually die in his own Chrono, especially if Studu gets another roll of multicast the way he did. Or even without any multicast, just eating 2 Fire Blasts inside his own Chronosphere with the Mask of Madness on is going to drop Pork to about half HP. Never mind the fact that you're going to be losing a fair amount of time. That you could have been used smacking down the PA, la la la. Blinking to set himself up, since the Sand King, you usually want to set yourself up around there. But when you're trying to push against high ground, the only real option you have is there. La la la, gonna do so. The biggest weakness, as well as strength of the Sand King, if the enemy team is prepared, they can actually just choose to throw out a cheeky spell there, so Rocket Flare, scouts him out, hookshot in, they can kill him. So Clockwork Goblin works as a great counter to the Sand King. And Sand King, he's a hero that needs a lot of setup. In this case, you're not going to be the primary initiator for your team. You've already, unless if Pork or Diego are in position, you really don't want to commit and be the one blinking in to initiate, because you want to set up for your Barrow Strike. You want to rely on them to go in for the easier initiation, because you've got the Blink Ravage or the Blink Chrono, and then you want to hang in the back. In this case, you actually want to wait until the Global Silence wears off, because if you start channeling your ult as he goes in, it's going to get interrupted by the Global Silence coming in from the Silencer. So Pork, be content to farm, wait until he gets the BKB, so that way he doesn't have to be afraid of Sidhu. Tuzki as well, going to be going for what looks like the Helmet Dominator. We have been seeing Mask of Madness picked up, at least in the western scene for the Luna, so phase Drum into Mask of Madness, just because it gives you an insane amount of early game DPS and teamfight for the first 30 minutes. It lets you really push Luna's biggest strength, which is a very powerful early game. But the rotation coming into the top lane, Pork, gotta be careful, Global Silence being committed. Citrus the Great smacking him down, last word as well as the Coastal Silence is there. The Global Silence prevents him from being Time Walk or Chrono. But that being said, Tuzki or Husky, because they're so Joey is so heavily dependent on that Global Silence, they just wait until Pork comes back to life, then choose to commit and take a fight. But they're going to play it safe and wait until their BKB comes online. So Joey are able to buy himself a bit of time and delay the inevitable critical mass from being reached on the Faces Void, because once that BKB comes online, Megalomania no longer can be relied upon as an answer. Citrus the Great, funny as fun. Probably going to be going for a Cranium Basher as his next item, then translate that towards an Abyssal Blade, since the Phantom Assassin, the biggest drawback of her is she's very hemmed in as far as her item choices are concerned. She can't really build a lot of the conventional DPS pickups a lot of other carries go for, such as the Mantis or something like the Ayaskali. She usually is forced to go for something like a Basher to provide her the lockdown, then something to Abyssal Blade, or even something like a Desolator if he doesn't already have an orb. Diego, gotta be very careful as Lenteef, as well as Sidhu are rotating into the Stun Brothers, or the Bash Bros are coming in. Diego hides himself in the tree line, Blink dodges the flare, should be able to make himself out of there. Sidhu could now opt to go for either a Yule Scepter or a Blink Dagger, either or is a great pickup. Blink Dagger does give you that clutch ability to actually be able to dodge the Chronosphere. Lala Lacha scouts out Sidhu. He pings himself out for the rest of his team, but he could be taking a Death Knell's Pork. Mask of Madness already popped. Sidhu just TPs himself out. This time pulled on the Barrow Strike. Can't pull that move off twice. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. Pork is going to smack you down. And with that, 700 gold off that BKB. Once that comes online, Tuzki or Husky have everything they need to be able to try to break Halyoung. If they want to play it super safe, they could actually wait until Luna finds her Mad Stell, but most likely with that BKB pickup, they're going to at least try to take the Tattoo. Because while Citrus the Great opted to go for mid-game items, PA still is an incredibly powerful late-game hero, and you have to always give respect and deference to her. You never want to really let the game go too late unless you already have an answer in place. In this case, they've got the MKB, so they're going to be more worried about Necrotic. Probably going to be going for something like a Shiva's Guard, or he could opt to go for an Assault Cuirass once again. Assault not as great to pick up in DP as it is in the Panda, just because she doesn't really benefit from it too much herself. Her spirits do, because it's got the negative armor. But the Shiva's Guard benefits the Death Prophet a lot more. La 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 prepping himself up in the bottom round. Eats a Cycling Dragon for his troubles that he unfortunately was in the vision. Hulkshot comes in from Lenti. Catches out Pork, Blade Mail's been popped, and the Global Silence is being used. Pork, they might actually be able to take a fight without a Chrono. They're able to do so. Tuzki cleans up the Lenti with that BKB Eclipse. Cetrus the Great standing his ground against him, but he's got no answer for the BKB. BKB does wear off, and Sidhu gets a multicast. La 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 eats another multicast in the face, and Citrus the Great smacks him down. Joey, in a repeated game number 1, able to hold on to their high ground. Last word does wear off. It's going to be enough to be able to bring him down. And Megalomania doing his thing over the bottom lane. Looks like Diego does get cleaned up as well. Joey, off the back of a fantastic Global Silence and the hookshot initiation from Lenti, able to completely circumvent the Ravage Chronosphere, as well as the Epicenter coming out from Tuzki or Husky, baits out an inefficient Eclipse, and with that they should be able to start barreling down the mid lane, maybe take themselves to tier 2 for the trouble, but Roshan has respawned. Looks like they're able to scout it out with the Helm and Dominator creep, and so they're going for the safer play, which is Roshan. Great play coming out from Megalomania. Because Tuzki or Husky once again trying to take a fight without having a BKB on one of their cores, it really messed up their engagement. Had they had that BKB for Pork, he could have popped it, stood his ground, thrown out Chronosphere, would have actually called out Lentif as well as Nicotic, and they could have decisively won that engagement, because Pork is the only hero that could deal with Citrus the Great. The rest of his team can't do anything. They could pray and run. The Eclipse isn't going to do anything once that BKB pops. The Phantom Assassin is going to drink your tears. You can't run from her, you can't really hide from her. Especially since she is going to be going for what looks like the Abyssal Blade, starting with the Relic first, just to give her some more deeps. She's critting harder than Daenerys Targaryen. You really don't want to mess with that Phantom Assassin. Blade Mail being used to great effect there by Lenti, since it meant that Pork, he really couldn't do anything. If he chose to man fight Clockwork, he's going to be killing himself faster than the Clockwork's going to be killing him. Faster than he's going to be killing the Clockwork. Nicotic going to be going for what looks like the Shiva's Guard. Great pickup, because Tuzki or Husky, they do have two very powerful cores reliant on right-click damage and a negative 40 attack speed. Doesn't seem like too much of a factor, but when you've only got one real core against two of theirs, every advantage you need is going to be enough. And Lentif, huge hookshot over on Pork. Silence coming in from Nicotic, and they should be able to find another kill on Pork before you get that Chronosphere off. He does have that BKB now, but 3 deaths in quick succession over the last 5 minutes, not really able to get much of a break. Tuzki stands his ground against Citrus the Great, but he pops his BKB. Global Silence being used as well. Sidhu's there to buff you up, runs it over on Tuzki. La 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 can't really do anything with the BKB, starting to wear off with a crit, brings down Lithium. Tuzki fleeing for his life, he's got this Eclipse available, and with the Eclipse and the Ravage, they are able to burn off the Aegis. Extremely expensive Aegis kill for them. Citrus the Great running down to try to find a pick-off over on Diego, and this is the power of the Ogre Magi / Phantom Assassin diving into the enemy tier 3s. Not your base, says Citrus the Great, decides to back himself out. They go for the cleaner play, taking out the enemy tier 2. Tuzki or Husky, once again in the repeated game number 1, all boiled down to the fact they tried to breach high ground without that BKB, threw away their significant advantage to Team Joey, who played very conservatively, played fairly passively, waited for the right window to strike, and Megalomania, once again the MVP with that clutch Global Silence, able to turn the tides. That being said, Tuzki or Husky, the game still isn't over yet. If they're able to get one fight where they can utilize the ultimate combination, they really can decimate Team Joey. But the issue with it is they've got too many moving pieces. They just don't have the BKB online for Diego or for Sanking for them to get off a timely ultimate when they really needed to. And so Silence's job is to act as a combo breaker. Citrus the Great getting smacked up by Pork. He should actually be able to bring him down inside the direction of the Chronosphere, but he's not able to do so. Chainfall's been committed, but Citrus is great. Blinks himself, keeps himself alive, and now the right click from Lich actually ends his life. Bit unfortunate, the 50% evasion not going to be enough. Sidhu stands his ground against Pork, gets multicast, he brings him down. It's the power of the Ogre Magi. Pure skill, he says, as he waddles himself to safety. Lentif comes in, backs him up, goes over on Lithium. They are actually able to bring down Sidhu. Lentif now a bit out of position, should be to kill Lithium, but he gets cleaned up by Tuzki. Nicotic now runs in, everyone running in one at a time. Bit late to the party, he's actually able to clean up a kill over on Tuzki as he phased through him to maximize the spirit damage. He cleans up too. Incredibly messy back and forth fight coming out for both teams, with Joey able to come out on top, with Nicotic coming in as the cavalry cleans up Tuzki, cleans up Diego. All it cost him was a BKB as well as the Exorcism. And with that fight, Joey pulled himself ahead once again. About 6,000 gold lead in their hands, as well as what looks like to be a 13,000 experience lead. That's going to be the critical factor. You've got a level 3 coup de grace available for the Phantom Assassin. You've got a level 3 multicast that was used to great effect as it completely destroyed Pork when he walked in without that BKB. And Megalomania, he's going to be hitting his level 16 very shortly. The fact that they opted for a very early BKB on the Luna, it's going to be wearing off now. It's only 6 seconds, so that they can actually bait out and kite the Luna for the duration of their BKB, and then run it down. Pork comes in, catches out Nicotic, Global Silence instantly comes up from Megalomania. They stand their ground, and Pork doesn't have enough damage when they kill Nicotic. Nicotic pops his Shivas, runs himself out. Pork is now down to an 8-second BKB. He hasn't really been able to find the most efficient trades with it. Actually, you'll cycle up to the air. They do bring down Nicotic with one more right click. Megalomania stands his ground. Should be able to bring down La La La, as he doesn't have the Sandstorm. Never mind, he does. And Diego does cover him. Lenti comes in with a hook shot. Joey's going in one at a time. They're making it work. 2x multicast. Tuzki pops his BKB, swings out the Eclipse. Citrus the Great pops his BKB, sets less dance partner. Goes in a Lithium. 2 shots in the Chain Frost, unfortunately doesn't bounce. Citrus the Great got to be very careful now. One more Glaive. Cleans him up, and Pork time walks himself to safety. Tuzki on the hunt. He wants to find a kill over on Sidhu, but Sidhu stands to ground with the multicast. He's going to get the unrefined multi-blast, Fire Blast as well. Fortunately, doesn't proc the multi. And Sidhu now trying to wait out until he can get another unrefined Fire Blast, and Tuzki, he decides to back himself off. He really can't risk it. If he happen to eat another 4x, he's going to take his death. And Sidhu even finds a regen room. Everything's looking millhouse for him. Looks like he's going to be the one going for what looks like an Assault Cuirass, so Battle Ogre Magi. Not only does he have pure skill, he's got the attack speed of the god. He's going to smack you down with in conjunction with the Bloodlust. So it could actually be a very effective pickup for the Ogre Magi, just because he's beefy enough as it is. When you throw in the attack speed from the Bloodlust as well as the Assault Cuirass and his naturally high armor growth, Sidhu then becomes a variable tank. He just runs at you. There's not too much you could do. That you can try to nuke him down with the Eclipse spell damage. Looks like we've got a Vanguard picked up by Lithium. That's the only reason why he'd go for the Vanguard, is if he's going for the Crimson Guard. He's already picked up the Iron Buckler. And so this is the nice thing about the Crimson Guard in regard to the 8-2 for supports. There are a lot more items you can build for them. Of course, the drawback of this is Crimson Guard's an item you want in the first 30 minutes. Past that point, it's still nice to have, but there are really better pickups you could go for the gold. Really should be going for something like a Ghost Scepter so he can keep himself alive. That being said, Sidhu can always Fire Blast you. So something like a 4-staff to try to kite the enemy carry. Wait out their BKB. Pork once again called out by Lenti, so Lenti really keeping his team in the game, forces out the buyback, and Joey, they just have to back themselves off. They know that they've pushed themselves ahead in terms of team fight. They've got enough of a lead that they can comfortably try to take the game late, just because they have actually started to recover. Their 2 cores, Nicotic as well as Citrus the Great, have actually found enough farm to be able to go toe-to-toe against Tuzki and against Pork. Pork, with those 4 deaths in quick succession, hasn't really been able to accomplish too much ever since he's picked up his BKB. He's been forced to use his BKB at inopportune times. They haven't been able to have that huge team fight that Tuzki or Husky need to be able to end this game. Team Joey, once again with Megalomania as the combo breaker, really messes up Tuzki or Husky's draft just because they've got too many moving pieces. They need the Pork to go in, catch them in the Chronosphere, then Diego comes in with the Ravage, then you've got the Epicenter, then you've got the Eclipse and the Chain Frost. If you don't get those abilities off in that order, or somewhat close to it, so you could also choose to initiate with the Ravage, the time to pick up really doesn't make a lot of sense. So if they'd picked up a much more powerful offlane hero, like if they picked up a Centaur Warrunner for themselves, they at least have a way to be able to deal with the Global Silence. If the Centaur picks up a BKB, he could pop it, use Stampede, get them to back out, reset the fight. Once the Global Silence wears off, that's when you go back in. And Team Joey, without that Global Silence, their team fight falls apart at the seams. We've now got a finished Abyssal Blade coming online for Citrus the Great. So he's going to be one-shotting poor Lithium, who might actually be able to survive for another hit now that he's got that Crimson Guard, but very little else. No mech online coming in from Tuzki or Husky as well, so interesting to see that Lithium went for a Crimson Guard as opposed to a mech. Mech would have been a much more effective pickup just because he would have had it earlier on. It would have given you a lot more burst HP. The Crimson Guard's a pickup that really makes the most amount of sense the first 30 minutes if you rush it on a hero like a Bristleback, because that means that your entire team can run at the enemy team and just disregard all the damage procs coming out from them. I'm not actually 100% certain if Crimson Guard blocks instances of the Exorcism Spirits, since Vanguard doesn't block the Exorcism Spirits either. But if it does, that would be enough reason to go for the Crimson Guard, because it completely mitigates the Exorcism. But that being said, it could be too strong of a pickup in that case. Since for about 4,000 gold, you're completely rendering an enemy ultimate useless. As far, I believe it doesn't have an impact on the Exorcism Ghost, but it could. If it does, that would be a great pickup. Because it means they can ignore Necrotic and prioritize Citrus the Great, since he's going to be their real form of damage. Although that being said, Siddha with the Aghanim Scepter, the level 3 multicast, doing a lot of work. And so this is the power of Joey's draft. They draft very powerful late game supports that are always relevant. Whereas Tuzki or Husky, the Sand King, he's lost his time to shine. Because he's not getting these huge epicenters off. He's got to be very careful now. He eats the Curse of the Silence. Siddha comes in with the Sentry Ward, 2x multicast immediately, going up for the epicenter, instantly cancelled by the Global Silence. Tuzki locked inside the Thunderdome, says with Lentif. Lentif does back himself out, but Necrotic and Citrus the Great should be able to run him down. Diego gets brought down by Siddha. They're able to bring down another 4-0. And Lithium gonna be run down by Megalomania. Megalomania fortunately doesn't have any way to really deal with him. So he just backs off. Actually, the hookshot comes in from Lentif. They do catch him out. And Lentif, massive plays coming in from him. That was a blind hookshot without the rocket flare. He used it after he hookshotted in. So huge next level play coming in from Lentif and Citrus the Great. With the Bloodlust, Looking Swell starts smacking down those creeps. Should have enough DPS speed to take down that first set of racks, since there's no buyback available for any of the members of Tuzki or Husky. Even though they don't have the Exorcism, because they're dead for 40 seconds, they don't have anything to worry about. Once again, Tuzki or Husky, they had an incredible combo, but they weren't able to get it off. Megalomania with that Global Silence. Interesting to see that Tuzki or Husky chose to continue to go for these teamfight picks without banning the Silencer. They picked up the Sand King after Silencer had been picked up, so they obviously understood that Megalomania would be playing that 4-position Silencer again. They chose to completely disregard it, and they did so at their peril. Very few successful epicenters coming out from La La La, despite his great early game start, was able to find an 11-minute 30-second Blink Dagger. It's a pretty good start on Sand King, considering how hard Siddha was able to shut him down in the early stages. But ever since then, because he doesn't have a BKB and doesn't have anywhere near the amount of farm to do so, if he'd opted to go for a BKB or a Yule Scepter instead of the Veil of Discord, could have been a lot more effective, since the Veil hasn't really paid for itself at all. They haven't really gotten anything from it. So inefficient pickups coming in from both their support. The Crimson Gun, which is absolutely worthless in that last fight, as well as the Veil of Discord. It's a lot of wasted gold coming out from the support to Tuzki or Husky. Could have been better spent on 4-staffs, as well as on Yule Scepters or even the BKB for the Sand King to be able to ensure that they could stand in these engagements. We've now done the Soul Caress for Siddha. Citrus the Great, don't even pick him in ages. He's critting for 1.4k. If he gets any bigger, he can run for Governor of California at this rate. Pork, gonna get focused down by Citrus the Great, but he's got the Aghanim Scepter, 2-3x multicast. Pork's Lithium like a potato. Pork, BKB wears off. He's not going to eat another multicast coming up for Siddha. The unrefined multicast as well. Backtrack this, he says. Citrus the Great. Man fights Tuzki. Lentif comes into the party, goes in on Diego, instantly pops his Kraken Shell. And GG being called. Well played coming in from Joy, as they're able to take a series 2-0. So both Game 1 and Game 2, and once again, the deciding fight was to the point at the bottom lane where Tuzki or Husky opted to push without a BKB on Pork. Because they got wiped at that fight, that was the start of the comeback for Joey. Tuzki or Husky, they opted to go for a bit of an unconventional drafting choice, choosing to pick up the Sand King after the Silencer had been picked up. So lesson learned for Tuzki or Husky, when the Silencer is picked up by Megalomania, they could have punished the greedy 4-position Silencer pickup if they went for aggressive early game support, so something like a Venomancer would have done very well. Vengeful Spirit also would have worked very well in conjunction with that. Because they went for the Sand King after Silencer had been picked up, they really hemmed in their options. They were too heavily dependent on the combination coming in, on the ultimate combination with the Void, Tidehunter, and the Sand King. Because they had Void and Tidehunter, it really did mess up their lanes, even though Pork actually was able to beat Necrotic in the mid lane. He got a lot more CS than him, was actually able to kill him a few times, and he didn't lose his tower. It's just the fact that the nature of Void, he's not really suited as a mid lane hero, because you're not able to pressure the other lanes. You don't really have any way to be able to influence the safe lane or the off lane, unlike a hero like a Sven, which would have been a lot more effective in this case. Tidehunter in the off lane, heavily zoned out, wasn't able to recover at all. Diego, no attempt at ancient stacking, because good recognition coming out from Joey, providing wards over the ancients in case if he tried to go for that option, but could have actually gone into the jungle. Since Diego didn't have Ravage for the first 15 minutes of the game, would have been a critical factor had he picked up his level 6. So good play coming out from Joey, especially with Megalomania once again being the MVP. with those clutch global silences, as well as his effort in being able to shut down Diego at the laning stage. Waited until he threw out his anchor smash before throwing out the curse of the silence to be able to burn off his mana. So that will be it for tonight. FortyeniN Community Shoutcaster for the UGC League. If you've enjoyed tonight's broadcast, please do subscribe and follow to the UGC Twitch channel, since there also is the Western invite, which is for the North American teams, I believe, as well as the South American teams with the Central invite and the European teams. The UGC League, global organization. You can check us out at www.ugc.com, ugcleague.com. Otherwise, that'll be it for now. Stay tuned for more and have a good night.